he kept saying, it wasn't Godzilla. It was never Godzilla.
Godzilla 1998 is easily the most hated kaiju film of all time. Initially positioned as the blockbuster of the year, Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich's take on the Big G proved to be a dud with audiences everywhere, while the Godzilla fandom decried the movie's liberties with the iconic monster and cursed its creators. Indeed, few movies have garnered as much hate as Godzilla 1998, and nearly 30 years later, it still has G fans fuming. Godzilla 98 ranks as one of the most overhyped movies of all time, with a massive marketing campaign that overshadowed the movie itself. Its creators spent millions trying to ensure their new movie would break box office records, taking out billboards that referenced Godzilla's size, while advertising materials were keen to never actually reveal the creature's freshly revamped design. When Godzilla finally stomped his way onto the big screen in May of 1998, it quickly became apparent that something wasn't right. Fans outright rejected the makeover, claiming that Emmerich and Devlin had betrayed them. Critics weren't kind either, and while the movie made a decent chunk of change, it is remembered as an infamous box office bomb. What's more incredible than the massive failings of Godzilla 98 is the fact that we were originally slated to have a much better movie, until it was canned in favor of the mess that would eventually end up on screen. TriStar had been developing plans for an American Godzilla movie as early as 1992. A script would be completed in 1994, with Jan de Bont slated to direct, and based on what we know, this would have been a much more faithful adaptation than what Devlin and Emmerich would attempt a few years later. The film got pretty far through the pre-production pipeline before being scrapped, including a fully fleshed out story involving Godzilla fighting a griffin, plenty of concept art, and an incredible design mock-up by Stan Winston. However, despite all the great work put into planning the film, for reasons unknown it all fell apart, with de Bont exiting the film under mysterious circumstances. With so much going wrong for the film's development, some fans have even gone as far as to suggest that the production itself was actually cursed. What happened next is a decision that would go on to live in infamy. TriStar hired Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich to work on the film. The duo were hot off their success with Independence Day and seemed the natural choice to bring Godzilla into the modern age. But it quickly became apparent that something wasn't right. In interviews, it was clear that not only were the two not fans, they outright despised Godzilla. Still, fans were excited by the prospect of a big-budget Hollywood Godzilla movie, and anxiously awaited Godzilla's return. Despite the fact that the groundwork had already been laid for a solid Godzilla movie, Devlin and Emmerich decided to start from the ground up. Most notably, Stan Winston's design was thrown out. According to a studio staffer who worked on the film, the change was made hastily.
Everyone loved what Stan had done with his design for Godzilla. But one day we came into the office to find that Emmerich had thrown it out. Too slow, he said. He presented us with a new sketch. It barely even resembled Godzilla. No one even knew who had drawn it. But suddenly this was the design. It was bizarre, to say the least.
Shortly thereafter, a maquette of the new design would take up residence in the Centropolis offices.
I didn't just dislike the design, I felt revolted by it. Something about it was just wrong. And the damn maquette, I can't explain it, but something about it always gave me the creeps. I avoided Emmerich's office because I hated being around it.
The maquette would ultimately arrive at Toho Studios, where it was carefully scrutinized by executives. The statue would be returned after 24 hours, at which point Toho reluctantly agreed to the design. According to an unearthed memo, Toho executives felt the design was unrecognizable as Godzilla, and wondered if it would bring dishonor to the character they were sworn to protect. But in the end, they decided to put their trust in Devlin and Emmerich. The duo kept themselves secluded from the rest of the crew. They would often disappear during shooting, leaving the production at a standstill until they returned. One of Emmerich's assistants, who agreed to speak anonymously, gave us some insight into the strange on-set environment of Godzilla 98.
He was distant, irritable. He acted like a diva on set, like this Hollywood big shot. The crew hated him for it. He would disappear out of nowhere, always giving the same excuse, that he had a meeting. One day I heard him go into his trailer, so I listened in. He was talking to someone. They had a deep voice, raspy. Whoever it was clear they were in charge, not Emmerich.
Behind the scenes, rumors began to spread. Much of the crew believed they were working on a haunted set, and they didn't trust their director. Crew members reported feeling a sinister presence on set. Sometimes they would see Emmerich apparently talking to himself. Eerie voices seemed to call out from the shadows. The animatronics of the monster seemed to move on their own. It was as if the duo weren't actually making the film, but rather channeling it. This sentiment was shared by the more superstitious crew members, who believed that Emmerich had aligned with dark forces for the purposes of making his film.
They sold their souls for fame. I don't know what kind of deal they made, but I know making Godzilla was part of that deal.
It was never about making Godzilla. It was about making Zilla real. And they succeeded. Once the ritual was complete, all that was left was to feed it through attention, obsession, and hatred, and the internet delivered. But it wasn't just the production that was cursed. The movie itself was cursed. Something came through. The internet enabled the 98 hate to spread exponentially, surging through online Godzilla communities like wildfire. Everywhere you looked, you saw the same rhetoric, the same arguments, the exact same dialogue. The more people hated the movie, the more its infamy spread. The more it spread, the more hate it inspired. Quickly, it came to strangle any discussion about Godzilla, with the fans unable to stifle their rage and turn their attention to Godzilla movies they actually like. They thought they were individuals, but the words weren't theirs anymore. They had become vectors, spreading the virus. In 2004, the fans finally got what they wanted. Godzilla and Zilla fight. With ease, Godzilla kills the imposter. The fans rejoice. All is well, it seems. Order has been re-established. The strong are victorious. Having finally faced Zilla in combat, it seemed Godzilla had won the battle. In truth, the war was already lost. This wasn't fan service. It was an offering, a ritualistic sacrifice. And by witnessing it, you played your part. It all happened exactly as Zilla planned it. Something without form found a way to inhabit our reality. Did you ever notice that after defeating Zilla, Godzilla was never seen again? No, not really. Not the way you remembered him. It would be 10 years before another Godzilla film arrived. But something had changed. It wasn't the same Godzilla. Maybe you didn't notice. You weren't supposed to notice. That's what it wanted. Freed from its own imagery, the specter of Zilla was now free to corrupt Godzilla's legacy to its core. Slowly the curse worked its way through our collective memory, like a virus, infecting not only the name of Godzilla, but the image, the history. It deleted Godzilla from the timeline. until there was nothing left but Zilla. Since 2004, every incarnation of Godzilla has been a graven image, echoes of the truth now irrevocably obscured. Shin Godzilla was a grotesque mutation. Godzilla Earth was a plant-based variant. In the MonsterVerse films, Godzilla was stripped of its nuclear allegory. Make no mistake, the king of the monsters is gone, and the throne has been usurped. You hated it. You couldn't stop talking about it. You shared the memes. You made the same tired jokes as everyone else. You even clicked on this video. You closed the loop. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. You played your role, deserving of a standing ovation. Even just watching this video, you've become part of the ritual. You kept the memory alive. You kept him alive. The king is dead. Now take to the comments and profess your hatred of Zilla. The loop continues.
You never left. 1998.